Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Camp Blount Historical Site. And this is a wonderful, wonderful day for Fayetteville, Lincoln County, the state of Tennessee, and the United States of America. We're finally to the point that this site is going to be recognized and preserved for future generations. And we're so proud that all of y'all have come out to be here today for this celebration. We've got a lot of people that are on the program. A lot of people have been involved in this to get us to this point today. A lot of them are going to speak to you briefly today, and we just want to thank everybody for your support and your support in the future, hopefully. But we will get started first with our prayer. Reverend Whitney Mitchell will bring us a prayer.
I was told that I had a few minutes to preach before the prayer, so I'm just teasing. I'm grateful and thankful for the opportunity to be here today. Back in November of 2017, my eldest son and I were first introduced to this place as our scout troop camped just beyond the tree line. And as the fog rode in that morning, if our historical interpreters would have shown up, I'm sure we would have been terrified. But it was a joy to be connected to that. And then last November, some of our scouts and scouters helped disassemble Mr. Greer's cabin, a relic that echoes from the time of this historic place. And we look forward to being connected to that endeavor. So really that brings me to why I would hope that we remember while we are here today. And that is simply that we are connected to each other. We're connected to the past as we retell the stories, and the future is connected to us as we make markers and we make things important for those generations. None of us arrived here today because we are here by ourselves. We're here because of God's providence, and we've come to this point for those who have come before us. And it's by God's providence that we'll journey onward. And so with that, I hope we remember that's the significance of today, in which you pray with me. Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth, you have revealed yourself throughout the ages. And as we bow before you this day, we give thanks for the ways that our mothers and fathers have pointed us to your presence in our midst. As we seek to build upon their legacy and join the great cloud of witnesses that praise your name, we give thanks that you are God of our children too, and you are God of us all for all generations. And without you, no words or works of ours have meaning. As we come to this place of remembrance, this place of connection to our history, may we not shrink from the lessons learned, and may we have the courage to hold to your eternal grace and mercy that lead us to seek first your kingdom and righteousness. Indeed, we live as strangers before you, wandering pilgrims as all our ancestors were. Strengthen us to run with perseverance the race set before us, that in all things we may glorify your name, and grant us your blessing, that our labor may be an enduring witness to all people, to you who reigns forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Whitney. Our colors today will be presented by the War of 1812 Honor Society and the BSA Troop 489, and they'll be accompanied by the Fayetteville High School and Lincoln County High School Drum Corps. And following presentation of colors, National Anthem will be presented by Miss Victoria Matheny.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Thank you, Ms. Victoria. First, we have greetings today from Rick Hollis, who is the National President of the General Society of the War of 1812. Rick.
Thank you. After the Battle of New Orleans, General Jackson said that his chief motive was to be able to render justice to the brave men that I have had the opportunity to command and who have so remarkably distinguished themselves. My old friend Fred Prouty, can you think of a better place to honor Jackson's men than right here? I come from Clarksville, Tennessee, which was the home of Governor Wiley Blount. Governor Blount married there, he raised his children there, and he is buried there. I represent many members of the General Society, all of whom are proud that their descendants fought to defend this country in the War of 1812. I had two grandfathers that fought in New Orleans with General Jackson. One died there. I had 16 grandfathers who came to this land and were trained and melded into war implements that faced the mighty foe. They conquered and they came home. We remember them. We attempt here with this park and with this community in support of honoring Jackson's motive, of his chief motive, and that is to bring honor and justice to those who served with him and for him. And for that, the General Society of the War of 1812 and I are very proud. We thank you all very much.
Thank you, Rick. And next on our program is our very own Dr. Ferris Beasley, who's going to give you a little history of how things have come about today.
Thank you, Randy. You know, we're here today to celebrate something that happened over 200 years ago, 206 years, in fact. This particular piece of land, Camp Blount, which was much bigger than it is now, was pretty important in the history of our country. It's hard to believe that the sleepy little town of Fayetteville, Tennessee, was involved as a muster site to provide militia and volunteers to two very important battles in the War of 1812. Not only has it been 200 years ago, but for that same 200-year period, the legacy of Camp Blount has been a well-kept secret. Pat, I think Representative Pat Marsh grew up just a little bit up the road, went to school just across the river. How much did you know about Camp Blount as you grew up? Absolutely nothing. Well, for the last few years, and especially today, that secret is no longer viable. We're going to celebrate and establish the legacy of Camp Blount. October 1813, what was happening? Middle of the War of 1812. The British couldn't believe they had lost the Revolutionary War. They still thought they could take us over. So they had a two-pronged attack to weaken our country and precipitate the War of 1812. They stopped our ships at sea with the excuse that they were looking for sailors that had jumped ship. Blockaded our ports. We badly needed to trade. The struggling nation financially needed the money from abroad. Bombarded and blockaded Boston Harbor. Bombarded and blocked Baltimore Harbor, landed at Baltimore Harbor, walked overland, burned the brand new Capitol in the new village of Washington, D.C., burned the new state capital. After that, they got back in their ships, sailed to Jamaica to plan the invasion of New Orleans. Now, how was Fayetteville involved in all this? Another prong of the British attack was to arm the Indians on the frontier. A civil war was going on in this Creek Indian Nation. The warring Creeks were in battle with the peaceful Creeks, and that's where we got involved. In August of 1813, 1,100 Creek Indian braves at dawn one morning attacked the small military garrison at Fort Mims, killed 250 men, women, and children in a rather grotesque massacre. When President Madison learned of this in Washington, he sent word to Governor Wiley Blount to answer that massacre. Governor Blount then called on the newly appointed Lieutenant General of the Tennessee Militia, a young unknown man by the name of Andrew Jackson at the time, to call forth the militia and volunteers, ordered them to meet here under the giant oaks on the banks of the Elk River south of Fayetteville and plan the attack. This was done on October 13th, 1813. The troops left. David Wright's painting, which is right over there, been moved maybe to somewhere. Okay, he was commissioned to draw a portrait of his vision of what happened that morning. You know, if you could stop and imagine just a minute, rule out the traffic noise, remove the commercial establishments around, and just visualize what that was. 4,500 men up the river, in the river curve, and south of the river, 1,500 horses. I've seen a lot of horses in my lifetime, not that many. But can you imagine what that looked like that morning with General Jackson on his horse? Horse was named Duke, by the way. Raising his sword, giving the order to march, passing that order on to the company commanders who repeated the order, and they started towards Huntsville, because the rumor was that the Creeks were going to attack Huntsville at any moment. After that, in March of 1814, the Creek Indians were finally surrounded at Horseshoe Bend, and the Battle of Horseshoe Bend lasted only a few hours. The Creek Indians were surrounded. 900 Creek Indian braves lost their lives, and only 45 of Jackson's soldiers were casualties. This made Jackson a rather instant hero. President Madison then appointed him Lieutenant General in the regular army and gave them the responsibility of protecting New Orleans from British attack. So that's how we kind of got to where we are. 9 months after mustering here at Camp Blount for the Horseshoe Bend battle, they mustered again. A lot of the Tennessee forces that would provide 2 of the 8 companies that Jackson used at New Orleans assembled here and walked. Can you imagine walking to New Orleans to be a part of that battle? The Battle of New Orleans, General Jackson, no professional military training as far as we know. He was a lawyer, plantation owner, real estate broker. 8 companies that he'd put together, no combat experience at all in those companies. They'd never worked together. They were facing the strongest army in the world at that time under Sir Edmund Pakenham. The British left Jamaica in early December, 50 ships carrying about 14,000 soldiers, 8,000 of which actually landed and met Jackson's forces. Everybody knew in the world that there was a slam dunk victory for the British. There was no way they were going to be defeated. They'd just gotten through defeating Napoleon's army in the Battle of the Plains in France. This was a done deal. No way. Such a done deal that Sir Edmund Pakenham's wife was on board his command ship, because as soon as the battle was over, New Orleans would be a crown colony of Great Britain. he and his wife would be the crown prince and crown princess and would take over and control all of the commerce on the Mississippi River. As we know, that didn't happen, and that legacy that traces back to little Fayetteville, Tennessee and Camp Blount has to be preserved. Particularly for our young people, they need to know what happened here, who we are, and what we are. And this is what we're doing today. Now, that was a past history, quick history real quick. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention some of the key people that were at key positions that helped bring this about. I think it started back 1996, 98. County executive at that time, Jerry Mansfield, started a movement to get the state legislature to issue a proclamation recognizing the legacy of Camp Blount and putting up a highway marker. He charged the AP history class at that time to study the history, do the wording for the monument, and that was done. At the same time, he contracted with the famous historical artist David Wright to give his artist vision of what it looked like. Where is that painting? Is it?
In front of you.
It happens when you get old. David, accomplished artist that he is, studied this history for about a year. Every detail of that picture, hopefully, is as historically accurate as it can be. And that picture, that painting there, has been the only visible thing that we've had to remember Camp Blount by for all these years. It served a great purpose. Later on, the bicentennial came up of War of 1812, 1815, 2012, 2015, and we had a committee, a local committee formed to put on a bicentennial celebration here. Chairman of that committee was honored to serve on the state commission, and Myers Brown, who headed that, quarterbacked our celebration. It was a two-day event. It was school day, first day, public day, second day. It created a lot of interest. The community was very much behind this. City and county governments both donated generously to bring that off. Mayor John Ed Underwood, John Law, Michael Wisenat, all the aldermen and past mayors, just raise your hands where we can identify you. The county was very much involved in it also. Mayor Bill Newman, raise your hand, and into the commissioners that are here. County really came together. Eddie Hall, a local industrial executive, helped raise funds for that. The Fayetteville-Lincoln County Industrial Board, a key member of that group, they went so far as to donate and pay for 1 acre of this 39-acre tract that we have preserved today. Will Thomas and Elaine Middleton were involved in that. And along with the city backing, we had to get some municipality to go with our local committee for the state to recognize them as an overseer and caretaker. The city stepped forward and did that, and they've supported us very well ever since. City administrator then and now, Scott Collins, was some sort of a blessing for that. He had a passion for not only Camp Blount, but for history. Apparently he'd had some experience in doing this before. He helped usher this thing through the legislature and got us some serious grants. As he went into these hearings, he knew most all the people personally, grown up with them in high school. That was a great help. We had, in order to get this thing done, Fred Prouty came down about 2010, I believe, Fred, and looked at this land for the first time. He was director of the Wars Commission at that time, working under the State Historical Commission and Patrick McIntyre, and they were the lead group in formally getting this thing through the legislature. They didn't do it by themselves either. They had help from 2 key people in the legislature that were considered the go-to people for funding for historical sites. The late Charles Sargent and Steve McDaniel, who is here with us today, were key people in that. They added to their group our local senator at the time, Jim Tracy, local representative Pat Marsh, Rick Tillis came on later on, as did newly appointed Senator Shane Reeves, and all these folks together got this thing done. Key people at perfect timing shared their passion for Camp Blount, their talents, the influence of their offices to bring this thing about. Leadership class of 2016 visited the museum, learned a little bit about the history of Camp Blount, got excited about the possibility of a volunteer statue being erected here someday, raised funding as their class project for the base. So when you get the base paid for, what do you got to do next? You got to put the money in. That's going to happen in March. The Bicentennial Committee was replaced by the Camp Blount Historic Site Association, headed by our present chairman, Randy Delap, and under his leadership and focus, we've come a long way, and that's where we are today. With that, I'll introduce Representative Rick Tillis.
Thank you, Dr. Beasley. You hear the term hallowed ground, used a lot, but that description by Dr. Beasley of General Jackson giving the order to march and all the thousands of Tennessee volunteers heading south to face something they didn't know really what they were headed for or what they were going to do. I tell you, in a time in American history and Tennessee history, there's an effort by some to remove historical markers or rewrite history. And it is so critical to preserve history, for better or for worse. What made the United States great and Tennessee great is how this country was formed. And we can't rewrite history, we can't erase it. But it's important to remember this. And I want to, you young people over there, you need to carry this forward, because efforts by Dr. Beasley and Randy, the people before us already mentioned, Steve McDaniel, the late Charles Sargent, Senator Tracy, and Representative Marsh. On the state level, when you get elected, you think you're getting elected to write bills and pass legislation. But then when you learn from people like Steve McDaniel and Charles Sargent that part of what you do is to preserve history, to take charge and help with local municipalities to preserve this history. So I'm so thankful for everything that was done here by the elected officials, a lot of volunteers that also were involved in fundraising, land acquisition, to make this thing happen, because without all that work, this would just be an empty field by a Walmart, and we don't want that to happen. So generations going forward will have this to enjoy, to remember, and to thank the people that made the sacrifices to make what our country is today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. And next is our State Senator Shane Reeves.
It's hot out here, so I'll be brief. Dr. Beasley, I appreciate you. Appreciate your passion for this project by all means too. So congratulations, Fayetteville. Congratulations, Lincoln County. This is a big day. I'm very honored to be your state senator and have the chance to serve with Representative Tillis and Representative Marsh for the last year or two. When I first ran for office, I had breakfast down here at the Chuck Wagon when it was still open. And very first day I was there, I was sitting with Jerry Mansfield, and he said, "Son, if you're going to run for office, you better learn about Camp Blount." Right out of the gates. So I didn't know what it was at the time, but I've learned about it over time, and it's a great day. I'm coming in on the tail end of this project. There's a lot of people that have played a big role in getting this done. Senator Tracy and McDaniels and others on the state level and the county level. And I look forward to coming back to this space, to this place with my children and my children's children, and celebrating it for years to come. So congratulations again. God bless you.
Thank you, Shane. Next is Patrick McIntyre, Tennessee Historical Commission Executive Director.
Thank you so much, Randy, and good morning, everybody. It's terrific to be here, and it's a day I've long awaited. I know you all have too, and again, I'm sensitive, as Senator Reeves said, to the heat. But on behalf of our chairman, Dr. Revis Mitchell, and our staff, I'd like to extend greetings. It's a long-awaited moment, as I said, and a great day to celebrate this important site for Tennessee and for what it means to our community here and to our nation as well. So Nina Skull is our new Tennessee Historical Commission, still relatively new, our Tennessee Wars Commission Program Director, so I bring greetings from her, but she's here and so she can speak to you after this event. You know, as far as we can determine, this is the only site in the nation that was acquired in conjunction with the bicentennial commemoration of the War of 1812 a few years ago. If somebody else in the audience knows of another one, please feel free to to call out, but this is really special and spectacular. It goes back over 100 years that this site was first marked as a historic place, and then over 90 years ago there was discussion about saving it. So it's taken a good while. In 1951, our agency, the Tennessee Historical Commission, put up a historic marker out here. Unfortunately, it was stolen in the 60s, but our involvement with the site fortunately did not end there. In 2013, as was discussed, there was a state appropriation from the General Assembly that several folks here today had a good deal to do with, that was matched with state lands acquisition funding, and Bill Avan, our good colleague and friend who's been responsible for so much conservation and preservation work with the Department of Environment and Conservation, runs that program. He's here today. So that is what allowed the purchase of Camp Blount. Since then, our agency has funded an interpretive plan, the Works Commission, wayside markers, a grant for the statue, and but it doesn't happen alone. As we're a very small state agency, and we require other folks to do the lion's share of the work, and that's why I'm so proud of the partnership with the City of Fayetteville. Has been lined out so well by Dr. Beasley, as well as the Camp Blount Historical Association. You guys are the guys that have to run it, raise most of the money on the day-to-day basis, and you're pretty darn good grant writers too, so kudos to you all. So each of you all inspire me so much, the work that goes on here every day. You know, I always like to point out there's no expiration date for a heritage tourism place. People are going to be visiting this place in 100 years. That factory or that other store might go out of business, but what we've done now is save this permanently. This is going to be a terrific asset for the community as a park and a place where we're going to bring people from all over America and the world to learn this story. Like any economic development, infrastructure investments have to be made from time to time, so that's what we're here to undertake today. So in closing, I'd just like to say that one of the young soldiers who was out here in 1813 in Abraham Allen's company, the 1st West Tennessee Militia Regiment from up at Clarksville, was a young man, Darnell Campbell, my 5th great-grandfather. And so this is one of those rare intersections of both professional and personal pride that I take in today in thinking about this. My ancestor was walking these fields over 200 years ago. So my hat's off to everybody. Thank you to all our elected officials and to you all as citizens and everyone who's brought us to this day, and I look forward to meeting you all after this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. Next is the Honorable Steve McDaniel, former state representative, and his name's been mentioned by several different people. He was one of the ones that really helped us in the state legislature, and we're glad to have you with us today, Steve.
Thank you very much. A few months ago, recently, my wife and I, Phyllis, who's with me here today, we went to the Shalmity plantation, the New Orleans battlefield. And as I walked that line, the Jackson line, I thought about those Tennessee volunteers who had served so well at Horseshoe Bend and the Battle of New Orleans. So I thought about this site when I was there, that those men, many of them had passed through Fayetteville and Lincoln County. And I'm so happy to be here today. I don't know of another significant site in Tennessee that means more to the nation than the Blount site. I am so pleased to have been involved. Now, Fred Prouty invited me to my first meeting here. I don't know how many, I asked him a while ago, how many years ago it was that we met. It was a long time ago. And so I've had the pleasure of being over here a few times. And I host visitation also for some folks from Fayetteville, Parker's Crossroads. While you all are attempting and going to erect the Tennessee Volunteer statue, we at Parker's Crossroads are looking at erecting a monument, a statue to Fred Prouty. Without Fred Prouty, I don't know that this site have ever been saved. And I can promise you that at Parker's Crossroads, it wouldn't have been saved, and many, many other historic sites. So I can't let this opportunity pass. I meant to make that a surprise about the monument. But I am proud to be here with my former colleagues, and we were here a few months ago and had a nice event down on the Elk River over here on the banks of the Elk River. And I'm so sorry that one of our members, one of our friends, is not with us today. And I want to thank you for those fans that are distributed in memory of Representative Charles Sargent. He was a champion in the legislature. Once we brought him around, he understood the historical significance of a lot of sites. We had to bring him around. But if you know what they've done at Franklin and what they're continuing to do, he had a big hand in that as well. So my thanks to all of you, all the partners. You know, it took every partner to bring this to be. Dr. Beasley, as you pointed out in your remarks. And thank you all. All of you have been so supportive, and I'm looking forward to coming back to the ribbon cutting here in a few months. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we have with us Patrick Linton and Houston Matthews from Croy Engineering and Darrell Bird from ArcSpace. And Croy Engineering is the firm that is doing all of the engineering for the things that are fixing to happen here. And I think Houston's going to come up and just give a brief explanation of what's in the works.
Thank you, Randy. First, on behalf of Croy and ArcSpace Studios, the architect, let me just say thank you so much for the opportunity to work with you guys, to work with the association, to work with the city. Mr. Mayor, Alderman, you've got some dedicated and valuable employees in our business. It makes our job easier, and that is really worth saying thank you for. So it makes our job easier. Thank you so much to the city for that. What's been, and I hope I'll take a chance to look at our the rendering that's put together. That'll tell you everything you need to know about what the future is for this beautiful site. What's fun in our world and our business is to be able to, and I experienced this on this project, when it started coming to the meetings, Randy and the Historic Site Association have been working for so long to put some vision together, and we come in at the tail end and be able to help you put that on the ground. And so that's been the most rewarding, is to see a project where all of the vision and all of the infrastructure is ready, and all of the hard work is really already been done. So that's been great to see it really come to life. The Historic Site Association has worked really hard to put together a plan and a vision for this property that hopefully we'll see some groundbreaking soon, and it's going to be a beautiful site. More than that, I think what's most important about the site, and if I may editorialize Dr. Beasley, his fantastic history, is that this site is critically important to us. I'm from Alabama, but this was a place where so many of you Tennessee volunteers gathered here and traveled south to save our Alabama tales. So for that, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be a part of the project. It's a pleasure to be a partner with the city. That's valuable to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Houston. Next is Jim Tracy, former state senator and now the state director of USDA.
Thank you, Randy. Good morning to everybody. We saved your tails back then, but we're going to try to beat your tails this fall, just so you know. All right. Good morning. Glad to be with you. It's an exciting day. Glad that we've got folks here. Let me just say, I started representing Lincoln County in 2010. I got elected in 2004. I was a longtime friend with Dr. Beasley. When I first got elected, he says, "Jim, don't forget about Camp Blount. We want your help when you get in the Senate with Camp Blount." I said, "Yes, sir, I got it." I grew up in Hardin County, where Shiloh's from, so I understood about heritage and understood about historical. I knew Representative McDaniel, how much he had done for Parker's Crossroads, and he's right, I'll be real quick with this, but Representative Sargent, now y'all don't know him, he was a New Yorker, transplanted to Tennessee, so he didn't actually speak the same language that Steve and I spoke. We had to speed up a little bit so he would understand it. But when we got to talking to him and Representative Marsh got elected, I said, look, Charles, Pat's from Lincoln County. He grew up just down the road from Camp Blount. You need to fund this project. He was chairman of finance. He said, okay, I'll get on the board to do it, and he did it. So, and as Shane pointed out when he ran, you know, Jerry Mansfield always was on my case. Actually, I had that picture in my office the whole time I was a state senator. So it's really an honor to see this historical site maintained for everyone in this particular area, how important it is. In my new role as USDA Rural Development State Director, we were very honored to be able to provide about $40,000 for signage along the road here so people can see where Camp Blount is and they can visit this site. So what an exciting day. Congratulations to Fayetteville and Lincoln County and to everybody that was involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And I'm going to take up for Houston. He's an Auburn man. Next up. Now, we're not going to get into all that. Next up is Representative Pat Marsh.
Thank you, Randy. I'm proud to be here today, and I'm proud to say that this is why we're known as the volunteer state, because what happened here in 1812 and 1815, the way I understand it, they asked for like 2,000 troops to muster here, and about 10,000 showed up, and it blew their mind away. So that's how we're known as the volunteer state. And I want to say that I want to thank a lot of people, the local people that started this, that asked for money, that raised money to buy the land, and then they brought me and some of our folks in, and I really didn't know much about it, and I was really shocked to hear all the history and why we hadn't already have something here. So I got with my history guy, Steve McDaniel, and I said, Steve, will you help me do something in Lincoln County? Help us all. And we all got on board, and we got Charles Sargent, the money guy, to be with us, and we raised probably, with the greenway and the bridge going over, and probably close to $1.5 million, $2 million that are going to go into this. So I want to thank Governor Haslam. We met with him on the project. Deputy Governor Jim Henry, Steve and Charles and Jim and Rick, we all met with Jim Henry, and I asked him to come today, and he was going to come, but he had a doctor's appointment he couldn't get out of. But Jim Henry bought into it, and he is the reason they signed off to give us the big money. So, but we got Randy DeLapp and Dr. Beasley and Scott Collins. He never let up. He called me every day, what are you doing to help today? But what's so good about it, this is going to be great for our history, for our family, our friends, and it's going to be great for tourism for Fayetteville and Lincoln County, and it's going to bring a lot of tourists in and a lot of money, and it's going to be a savior in the future for our economy. I really believe that it's going to be a feather in our cap, and I'm just so proud to play a small part in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And now Mayor Meisel, listen now.
I want to thank everybody that's spoken here today. I think you can see that we wouldn't be here without their belief and their support. We've heard several names over and over again. I was fortunate to be an alderman in 2000, and I think it was 13 when we took the vote to maintain this once the state would buy the property. And it's just a key thing. Hard work. The first thought when I was thinking about the comments, that summarizing my comments, I would say, is it's so fitting that we're celebrating something where we ask people to volunteer for something that was a gruesome experience, but they understood what the pride was. And so that passion and that pride is what we've had here for the last 6 years is this project, and the excitement's a word that happens every day, and it's been relentless, and it couldn't have happened with everything that's been mentioned. But we also want to mention, we want to give our thanks to BC Woods Property for helping us with easements and a nice donation of land to this
property. Steve Miner helped out with that quite a bit. It's also been mentioned about the Camp Blount Historic Site Association. They were able to get a couple grants. We want to thank Jim Tracy with Rural Development. Part of that was a $40,000 grant that's going to help erect a statue. We're going to have a $40,000 grant for the sign for the entranceway. And so at this moment, the most important thing we're going to do is everybody that's got the helmet here, we're going to move over here to the shovels, and we're going to kick this off. So I want to thank everybody for coming to this event.